Hey, #Heathen community, Casey here again. This is my second video, and what I was thinking about going over today is my health history. Just a Bible's worth of it. Hopefully, it goes by pretty quick though. And I do have all 5 printed sheets of it to go through, so but I'll try to make it as short and sweet as possible. So basically, when I was growing up, when I was really young, I would have these bouts of stomach flu, and it would be pretty bad for about anywhere from 4 days to a week. And my mom would call into the doctor, and they would just say, "Well, it's stomach flu, so take her off of all food, lower the liquids and to an amount that she can handle." And wait and see if that clears up. And that would always help. Sometimes it took longer. This kept occurring, and we never went in for it. In 8th grade, I ended up with breathing problems. We were actually doing the sex ed video on pregnancy, and it was funny because the teacher thought I was trying to get out of it. So she reluctantly sent me to the office to the nurse. I told the nurse what was happening, and she said, "Well, we'll get a hold of your mom." So they called my mom, and she was at work, and it took her about, I would say, about a half an hour to get to the school to pick me up. And we went to the ER, and they took a chest x-ray. And lo and behold, I had a partially collapsed lung. It was only 5%, so it wasn't a huge problem, but the doctor was absolutely livid that the school didn't call an ambulance for me. So he called them directly from my hospital room in the ER to let them know what for. They basically said it would heal on its own. Oh yeah, before I forget, because I have a propensity to do that, I am wearing my Love Yourself First shirt from Always Keep Fighting, which is a campaign. It is a fundraising campaign that is run from Jared Padalecki, who plays Sam Winchester on Supernatural. And he started this campaign actually as a suicide awareness campaign for people. But my sister had found and got me my first shirt from that campaign a few years ago already. And she said it just reminded me of like all the health crap I deal with and to always keep fighting. And I love the campaign, and I support them when I can. When they're running, they only run the fundraiser for a little bit at a time, so you can't get the shirts all the time, which is one downside, but I try to catch them while I can. Anywho, back to the health issues. So they sent me home with a 5% collapsed lung, and they were right, it healed. And a day later, I had lost, basically there was a pain in the back, almost like you stood up and caught your back on the corner of a table. So that went away by the next day, so it was fine. No big deal. But I did miss a Brewers game, a Milwaukee Brewers game. That was the day we were supposed to, or it was the day before we were supposed to go. So I was kept home that day and completely missed the field trip, which I wasn't happy about. Anywho, I went on, same stomach problems throughout the year, and in high school, I would have these bouts of extreme pain in the lower right side of my abdomen. And they would happen during the day, and 9 times out of 10 I was at school. Mom would have to come and pick me up. She would bring me to the ER. By the time they got me back and did an ultrasound, though, they would find that it wasn't my appendix, that looked normal, and the pain had slightly gone down, so they would send me home. My primary care doctor ended up referring me to a GI specialist with this because it kept happening. And the specialist said that he was pretty suspicious that it was what he called chronic appendicitis, which means that the appendix can like fill up like a balloon. Well, not this big, but it would fill up with the fluid, and then instead of bursting, like most cases of appendicitis, it would actually just drain and go back down. So that's what we were seeing. And he set me up for the surgery for an appendectomy. That was in 2003. And when he did take it out and he sent the cells in for testing, they had evidence of being repeatedly inflamed. So that's exactly what it was. Then in 2005, I was in college and we had gone to the Mall of America. And lo and behold, in the middle of Mall of America, I got a sharp pain in my back. Like I walked into a corner of a table again. So by this time I knew what it was. Figured it would heal on its own and just asked the girls if we could go back to the dorm so I could take it easy for the rest of the day. I left it for 3 days before going in. Finally going in because it was really cold and it hurt to breathe outside. So it was causing problems with me getting in my classes because obviously you have to walk to the buildings from the dorms. And went in and the doctor took an x-ray. Sure enough, it had collapsed and it was 20% collapsed. So he said this was one that is on the edge of whether it'll fix itself or not. Sometimes they can at that rate and sometimes they can't. So basically he sent me back to school and I attended school for another 3 days until the weekend. And or the following weekend from when we went to Mall of America. And it still hadn't gone away. So what I did was drove from River Falls back home to Green Bay, which is about a 3.5, 4-hour drive. And we ended up going to the ER when I got back into Green Bay. And they set me up. I hadn't had anything to eat or drink because he said if it was surgery, they would do it right away. And they did do surgery right away. So they basically reinflated the lung and then stuck a chest tube in between 2 ribs to basically suction out the air. Because what that does then is your lung is like a balloon. So it's inside your chest cavity. And then when it collapses, there's all this air on top. And that air is what they have to remove. So they put the chest tube in and it sucks that air out, thus pulling your lung back up. They did that. They also roughened up the lining on the outside of the lung and on the inside of the chest cavity. And they did that so that when it healed from scarring from that it would adhere together. So they would hope that it wouldn't do it again. And that's what they told me. Next, in April of 2006, I had another one of those stomach flu bouts. And it was causing a lot of pain. And I couldn't stop going to the bathroom and I couldn't stop throwing up. So I went in and they took blood tests, and at the small clinic where they take the blood, they actually have to send it to the hospital to get readings done. So they took my blood, but then they sent me on my way, thinking that it was just a random stomach flu. No big deal. So I stopped at local grocery store and got a bunch of Kool-Aid and Gatorade and Jell-O, basically a liquid diet so that I could maybe take in some nutrients. And as I was leaving the grocery store, my phone rang. And they said that my amylase count in my blood was 8 times normal. So that they thought it was my gallbladder and that I should go to the ER immediately. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, go right to the ER.